Have you ever wondered how people used to learn computer programming back in the day? Let's not forget there was no internet and it was rare to find a computer in a home. Even my school didn't get a computer until 1988. Today we buy a computer without any detailed manuals or instructions, assuming that everybody knows how to use them. So how did people back in the day learn how to use and program a computer? Well, stick around, you're about to find out. Hi, and welcome back to Evans Retro Lane. In this episode, we take a look at the user manuals, references, and magazines available for the first set of computers that helped people get started. If I had to trace back the origins of how I learned how to program and use a computer, I would point directly to a book from when I was 7 years old. Picture it, Adelaide, 1986. My dad, who also loves electronics and tech, brought home a brand new Commodore VIC-20 computer. The Commodore VIC-20 first appeared in 1981, although it was released a year earlier in Japan as the VIC-1001, and it was the first computer in history to sell 1 million and then 2 million units. So it's safe to say that this computer was very popular. One of the marketing goals for the VIC-20 was to label it as a friendly, easy-to-use computer. So, how was this achieved? Well, for one, it had a large library of titles available at launch. Cartridges with programs, but mainly games, were readily available. All a person needed to do was plug in the cartridge and power on the computer, much like the Atari video computer system. But the computer also had built-in chips that would provide the ability to utilize the computer in other ways. You switch it on and it's ready to go. No waiting for an operating system or downloading of updates like we have today. Many computers at the time also included Microsoft Basic, allowing anyone to start typing in a program immediately. As a kid, I remember wandering into the room where the VIC-20 was set up. I started looking through the books that came with it and was completely mesmerized by what this thing could do. And it all began with this book, the VIC-20 User Guide. Personal Computing on the VIC-20, a friendly computer guide. Still keeping in mind, I'm only around 7 years old. You can just see as I flip through the first pages, this really starts from the beginning, assuming a person knows nothing about computers and programming. I absolutely love how they invite the reader to try typing in a program with simple statements and provide explanations alongside. And the VIC-20 is also a happy entity with personality. The little picture representation of the computer gives you the feeling you're actually conversing with the VIC-20. That is a really nice touch and appealing to kids. So as a young 7-year-old, I read through the manual and tried typing in many of the sample programs. Things really got exciting for me when I realized the computer could be used to create animation. Now don't get too excited, we're talking 1980s tech here. But at the time, making the computer do something and have it show on the TV was exciting. Here's the code in the book to create a jumping person. Let's type it in. And the result when the program is run. Let me update the program slightly so it actually shows like the person is jumping. Let's run it now. There we go. Here's another small program using a loop to move a flying bird from the top left of the screen to the bottom right, and the result when the program is run. Here's another small program showing how you can ask the user to input a value, do some processing, and output the result. In this case, convert degrees Fahrenheit to Celsius, and the result when the program is run. This book really did give me the ability to start creating programs from a young age. I would go as far to say that I owe my career in IT to this book. I think it's the best written book to introduce anybody to a computer. So this book came with the VIC-20. However, there were a range of other books available for people who wanted to take their experience further. Here are another set of books aimed at the VIC-20 users, titled An Introduction to Basic Part 1 and Part 2. A Commodore 64 variety is also available. These books came with a set of cassette tapes used to load sample programs, as well as quizzes to test your knowledge at the end of each unit. Now, as a 7-year-old, I recall starting to work through the beginning of part 1. It had a nice test card demo program to start off with, followed by a game of Hangman. One of the things I love about these books is that they introduce the concept of a process diagram, representing the program you want to create and then translating it into code. Here is an example of a program on page 112, which shows how this program should work. And then over the page, the code to make it happen. Part 2 then goes on to explain more advanced things, like subroutines, arrays, and how to draw graphics and color to the screen. Here is a process diagram for a hunter routine in a Wasp shooter game. Here is the code for the game on page 243, and the game in action. The level of detail in these books is superb. If you're interested in getting technical though, there's another book you should check out, and that is the VIC-20 Programmer's Reference Guide. This is an essential resource if you want to do any sort of programming on the VIC-20. It explains all of the functions and includes things like screen and color maps. You can learn how to program your own custom character set into the VIC-20 to make your program or game look the way you want it to. As a 7-year-old, I did take a look at this book, but it was way too technical for me at the time. But now as an adult, I went through it during some time off, and I thought I'd challenge myself to recreate one of my all-time favorite games, Venture. It took me some time, but I was able to recreate the game, all possible by referencing these books. I'll run through the process of how I created this game and share a step-by-step tutorial in a future episode. Further into this book, there's a whole chapter on sound. You see, the VIC-20 has 4 voices, and 3 of those can be programmed to play musical notes while the 4th plays noise. On page 102, you quickly see that for a particular note, you just have to send the computer the right command to get it to produce the sound. This is known as a poke, as in we poke a value into a memory location. Using a code sample from page 98, I soon realized that I could substitute the numbers in the data statement with my own by referencing the notes on the page 102. This code would turn the VIC-20 into an electronic music player, similar to a keyboard playing a recorded demo. At the time, I remember being so excited, I took out a music book and tried to recreate the music on the VIC-20 by looking up the corresponding note values, and it worked. The programmer's reference goes into so much detail, even all of the instruction sets if you want to try your hand at assembly programming. It even explains the functions of each of the pins on the main chips. Wow, it actually makes understanding the hardware a lot easier, not to mention diagnosing issues if they ever come up. Another brilliant inclusion in this book is the complete schematic of the computer. Mind you, there are different revisions of the motherboard, but it's pretty neat that they included this at the time. Now, even though I'm referring to the books for the VIC-20, Commodore also released a user guide and programmer's reference guide for the Commodore 64. It would follow a similar layout in terms of content, although the Commodore 64 user guide is not nearly as easy to understand as the VIC-20 user guide, but it's not too bad. The Commodore 64 introduced better graphics and sound, and this manual covers those areas well. Who can forget creating a sprite of a balloon with the Commodore logo? By the way, a sprite is a graphic which is independent from the background. This made creating games a lot simpler compared to the VIC-20. Commodore also provided manuals for every product they released. Here's a manual for the dataset, and the VIC-1541 disk drive, and later the 1541-2 disk drive. Back then, a lot of technology came with a manual. Even the 1351 Commodore mouse had a decent manual. Things were really detailed back then. If people wanted to learn a bit more about the 1980s technology, there were numerous third-party books and references also available. Here are a few examples published by Compute. Compute was a popular magazine at the time, covering many 8-bit computers including the Apple II, the Atari 400 and 800, and of course Commodore. People could subscribe to a magazine service and receive monthly updates, reviews, tutorials, and typing games. I'm fortunate to have a large collection of preserved Compute's Gazette magazines. This series was a spin-off from the regular Compute magazine, focused on Commodore computers due to their popularity. Back in the mid-80s, my dad would collect these magazines, and in fact I remember the first game he showed me was a game that he typed in from one of these magazines. It was a game called Hard Hat Climber. This almost looks like a copy of Donkey Kong. The aim is to collect all the toolboxes from the worksite without any of the rolling barrels hitting you. There are also deadly traps to avoid, like broken ladders and platforms. This game runs on a stock VIC-20 and is quite enjoyable despite its simplistic look. Just to show you, both the VIC-20 and Commodore 64 program listings are available in the magazine. Magazines like these helped catapult the rise of bedroom coders, who went on to create commercial games later on. As someone who taught software development back in the early 2000s, I made sure I followed the same philosophy of starting simple and to explain the foundations and build a relationship between the programmer and the technology being used. This fine art seems to have been lost. I see software development being taught by relying heavily on multiple layers of existing software, using drag and drop and codeless technology development platforms. Not saying that those things are bad, but when learning software development, it's always better to build your own software from scratch and not depend on someone else's software. If you're looking to get into some old-fashioned programming and would like to read through some of these books, you may find them in various conditions online. Or if you prefer, many of these books can be reprinted, such as these I obtained online, thanks to the dedication of the retro community. And that wraps it up for another episode. I hope you've enjoyed revisiting this piece of computing history with me. Don't forget to like this video if you found it informative. You can also support me on Ko-fi and subscribe to the channel for updates. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.